right as my kid drops an Xbox controller above me.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of our Stayin 2800, our WandaVision rewatch show. We are talking about episode 7 tonight, titled Breaking the Fourth Wall. This is the 2000s mockumentary style episode. Willie, tonight we are joined by, I had to get a whole panel together. I'm trying to find, we called it the Jedi Council and we did Mando. So we're gonna have to call it something else, like whatever the council that Nick Fury
Security
talks
agency.
to. Yeah, the Security Council, whatever it is. So Willie, tonight we are joined again by Kyle from last week. Kyle, how are you?
Doing well, not too bad.
Thanks for coming back.
Of course.
And tonight we have a new guest in the 2800. Nick, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. I'm great. I'm good. I'm happy.
This is probably the main group of people that I talk to about this show on a daily or on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. So I'm happy to have everyone here. Willie, I'm going to start with you. What were your general thoughts about episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall?
Well, I mean, there wasn't that much fourth wall breaking, but I liked this episode. I think that, you know, we talked last week on how a lot was going to hinge on what they did in this episode, and I think that's true. But it showed that at least the show's trying to do something. It's still messy, and it doesn't all make sense, but it's enjoyable. So that's kind of where I've landed.
So overall pro on the episode. Overall in.
Yeah, overall.
Okay. All right, Nick, you're new to the show, so I'm going to head it over to you. What were your thoughts about this episode in general?
Sure. I enjoyed it. I had fun all the way through. I kept trying to find like little hints, little Easter eggs. I've been following some theories that Hayward might be Ultron in disguise based on some obscure Avengers cartoon shenanigans that they've done. But I had a lot of fun with the character development, like Vision acting like a regular human in his Vision form was super fun to see. And I don't know. I mean, I know we'll get to the twist, but I didn't really think it was a twist because I feel like people have been putting it together the whole time. So I guess I felt rewarded by that finally coming true and it not being something dumb. Like, I don't know. Fair. I mean, they've been hinting at that for so long. Like she was on the board as this unknown person, and honestly, I think that the MCU style post credits is what super delivered on this for me. Seeing Evan Peters show up and, you know, creeper going creep or whatever he said to her, sneaker gonna sneaker, however he put it to her. You know, there was just so much to unpack in this, like the little mini Agnes credits in the middle. We'll get into it, but I'm super pro on this.
Interesting. Okay. I want to come back to definitely a few things you said, specifically the Hayward Ultron thing, and because I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things related to that. But Kyle, what were your thoughts about the episode?
So yeah, like Willie mentioned, we kind of talked about it last week, where this episode really was the linchpin on how we would view the next few and how this whole season wrapped. So I think this episode I had a lot of feelings similar to the last one, where it was some filler, and then of course the twist was kind of just like to me at least, it was like a filler with benefits. You know, there were some pieces that were like exciting, but you know, I and we'll probably touch on this at some point too, but a lot of the cuts to Vision and Darcy were kind of flat to me. You know, so that kind of took away from those important moments that we saw anywhere else. I liked it overall. I think I wouldn't say it's my favorite so far, but I think that last twist just got me actually excited for whatever they're going to do next.
Cool. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. Honestly, like I'm interested to hear people that like took this in and either did expect the twist or didn't expect the twist and just kind of overall are still positive on it and are excited for the last two. I'm going to save my thoughts for later as we get on to the main discussion topics. I'm going to jump right into Comics Corner, but super out on the episode, super out on the show now. I'm not looking forward to it, and I do have some, reasonings behind it, but I want to save it. I want to talk about stuff that we do like first before I depress everyone. So, Comics Corner, I only have 2 things for you guys, but keep me honest if I missed anything. First thing, the commercial this episode was for the Nexus, like antidepressant. So in the Marvel continuity, the Nexus is like this interdimensional gateway between realities of the multiverse. So I think it lends credence to the fact that Evan Peters is actually Fox's Quicksilver, so that it's not there for just for the fans' sake, which we were worried about. So I do appreciate that. Also, if you've been tracking all the commercials line up to an Infinity Stone, this would be the Reality Stone because they mentioned reality specifically, and it's all in red. So a couple of things there. Also in the comics, Wanda is what they call a Nexus being. So things that she does and things that she can do affects multiple realities at once. She's kind of like taking an on Stranger Tides approach, like a Superman type is part of the metaverse that impacts
no matter what
the
reality
multiverse.
she's in.
Yes, exactly. And the second thing I have for
Brian, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
go
but
ahead.
Nexus, I didn't realize. I've been watching a couple of the Avengers movies and rewatching them, but Nexus is also the place that Tony Stark went to when he ended up finding Vision again after Ultron destroyed him. So
that's right. He goes to the Nexus.
For
Interesting.
the internet, yeah.
That's a good call. I did not catch that.
So that's just another, I literally just watched Ultron last week, and I'm like, oh, wait.
Can I just say I appreciate that there is another person on the planet who will rewatch Age of Ultron just because?
I know. I had the same feeling as everyone with Ultron, but it has its moments and its reasonable reason.
60% of Ultron is awesome, but the 40% that isn't awesome is really bad. Yeah. That's my thoughts about it. So it's like 60% is way better than a lot of things in the MCU, but that 40% sucks so hard.
Right, and it's disappointing.
The thing that pissed me off was that I had read the comic series, like the mini event of the same title, right before the movie came out, and I was like, "How are they going to do this?" And then they didn't even try.
And I was like, any of that.
Age, that's like, it was like a day, like
literally. The whole truck sequence in Ultron sucks, with Cap fighting him on the thing and Black Widow. That whole thing really bothers me, but the party sequence is honestly one of the best scenes in the MCU, where they're all drinking after they mop up Hydra. It's wonderful.
Well, and that's great because of the payoff with Vision and the hammer at the end. Like that wasn't just it was a good scene on its own, but because they paid it off, it actually
pays off doubly in Endgame with Cap lifting the hammer. All right, my second thing for Comics Corner, unless anybody else saw anything else, is the sword suit that Monica wears under the spacesuit is very reminiscent of her comic book suit that she has when she's Photon, when she's Pulsar, and then when she becomes the next Captain Marvel. So those were the only 2 things I saw for Comics Corner this week. Because the rest of the episode was the rest of the episode. So we're going to jump into In and Out now. And I am going to do what we did the last time we had a council, Willie. And I'm going to assume everyone's out, and you'll all have to talk me in. I have 12 In and Outs for you. You'll all have to talk me in. There's actually, I'll give you one that I liked, but we're going to go in order. Okay, so first, the Modern Family mockumentary / The Office intro. So the mockumentary style of this episode, because I think it sucks.
So I'm in only because compared to last week, they actually did a really good homage to that style. Granted, I think the writing for that style wasn't as clean as I think I would have liked it, but the way they also, and you'll notice too, I saw a cool side by side of Wanda and then Claire, and they're. I'll give props to the actors and maybe the writers too, but they actually had her mannerisms really reflect Claire very well. So I think those who watched at least a handful of Modern Family episodes really did get a decent payoff with this. And of course, The Office in the intro was, I don't think it was as office-y as people were hoping for, but it was, it had the beat, I guess. So.
I feel like it had the beat and the found footage style that The Office is known for, and I think that was very purposeful. I think, again, it's going to go into my larger point, but anybody else in on the mockumentary style?
Yeah, I liked it.
I'm into.
Yeah. It was.
Go ahead.
It was fun. I mean, it gave Wanda cool stuff to do. She did a really good job with it. It was fun. That's what it comes down to.
I think it was more than fun, though. I agree it was fun, but I do think that stylistically it paid off. Like, the name of the episode was Breaking the Fourth Wall. The mockumentary style literally breaks the fourth wall, but also I feel like Wanda breaks the fourth wall, and like you're not supposed to talk. Like, there's that whole moment where it's kind of coming apart around her, like her powers.
Which I'm going to stop you right there, because it's undone, and this is why I'm annoyed with the episode. That is a great moment, and then it's later immediately reversed and turned on its head as bad for me. So,
which part is bad?
Where you see Agatha, I'm assuming.
Yes. So
Wanda, I agree with you.
In that moment, Wanda says, "You're not supposed to talk." When someone asks her, like,
"Do you feel like you deserve this?"
Yeah. And then she says, "You're not supposed to talk." And then later in the
it's like immediately turned around.
In the musical montage, we see that she was the one that asking the question. So that interesting idea of perhaps Wanda is just like really playing with the viewers and our perception of watching the show as viewers is immediately undone and just given a in-universe episode reason. And that whole montage drives me nuts for like 20 reasons. But again, we're going to get to it. So,
because it's
I mean, I guess like I could just tell you too, like Brian just hates fun. And so
Brian hates melody, and
well, it's the Munsters theme song, number one. That everybody's like giving it so many props. It's the Munsters song. It's the Munsters font. But we're gonna get to that. Okay, second thing. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but Wanda is eating Sugar Snap cereal, and there is a clown on it. And Willie, I sent you the Twilight Zone episode that I think is playing its way into this series. In which clowns in a circus are heavily featured, which leads to it all being a dream. I don't know if that's still in play, but I liked that the clown and I liked the Sugar Snap. So I'm like tentatively in on that. I don't know if anybody else saw that and thought, like, I guess Thanos. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like the logical leap, but.
Well, I know I saw you see the maze on the back of the cereal box, just kind of leading to like, well, this feels like a maze sometimes.
Yeah.
Can I ask, in that same scene, did anybody else wonder if the face on the milk carton was significant? It kind of resembles one of her kids.
Oh.
I didn't even see it, but they could have been hanging a lantern for what happens at the end of the episode.
And they've been like kind of hinting that at the idea of like, well, where are the kids? Well, where did these kids come from? Like back and forth. Right. So I think that just kind of, I mean, it might be kind of a nod to like, yep, this is definitely gonna happen. But also they've been talking about kids, and Brian, I'm sure you have something lined up for whatever's next with Mephisto, if there is still a Mephisto with that.
Yeah. Okay, next. Wanda doesn't know who Pietro really was or is.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's bad. Terrible.
And the thing, it worried me that was going to end up being like the thesis for this whole show, and I was getting ready to hate it, because Wanda in universe cannot have answers. That's fine, but the writers of the TV show better have some damn answers for what's going on.
I didn't like it. I didn't like that he was non-existent from the episode, except for the mention and then the post-credit stinger, because again, it was like, okay, well, we literally glossed over his existence in the last episode, other than to show that, number one, he's dead, number two, that he has his old memories, and then he was just like part of the cast, and then he was gone, and she doesn't even know what he really is. So I was really out on that.
it's really a sitcom thing to do, though, to just throw in step by step, and Cody living in their driveway. Like, I don't know. I think of the Poochie episode of The Simpsons that I reference all the time, like them
Right.
and like them being meta with Roy living with them for just that one episode. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like it was again, they're playing on the tropes of TV, and I still think that the framing of American television has some kind of significance to Wanda as a child in Sokovia being this like perfect life that she imagines.
Yeah.
And it, I don't know. There's obviously a lot going on.
That's a fair point. I understand that could be what's at play. I think that maybe after watching 7 episodes of the show, and this was my comment last week, is that I think maybe perhaps we're giving the show far too much credit. And I want to say that the writers are smart enough to bury in like an old sitcom thing of just like, oh, well, he just won't appear in this episode because that's like a sitcom thing to do. And it could be like, I will give you like, certainly that could be, but I don't think that's the case here, because I think that they're trying to wrap things up quickly, because they spent the first 6 episodes treading a lot of water now. And that was an issue I had, but again, we'll get into it. Okay, next up, Agnes's hat tip in the beginning of the episodes when she takes the kids away and says, "Come on, kids, I won't bite." And then they cut to her mockumentary interview, and she goes, "I did bite a kid once."
I thought that was just kind of funny. Again, leaning on the trope of just like, you see this one, the character says one thing, and then in secret, in what they think is a secret, kind of more personal moment, they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way."
As soon as she showed up and said, "I'll watch the kids," I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And then they did the hat tip of, "I bit a kid once." And I'm like, oh, no, we're in for it, aren't we? So I was out on that. Wanda's nervous breakdown, where stuff in the house is starting to change eras. Like the kids were playing with a PlayStation controller, and then it turned into an Atari joystick. And as Wanda's mental state deteriorates, so does all of the constructs in the home.
I viewed that differently.
Okay.
I didn't view that necessarily as her mental state deteriorating. I viewed that as whatever manipulation is over her faltering, like her trying to fight it. Like I kind of feel like she's been trying to break through whatever this is the whole time, and like she's been lured by this promise of a family and children and happiness, and I sort of feel like Vision is sort of the best parts of her, and without him there, she is forced to do better. Yeah, think about the consequences of her actions, and like I think she did this, but I think she was sort of manipulated into doing it still, and I know that that's something that people have been thinking from the beginning, but I feel like with the Agnes reveal now, that's very likely.
Sure. I could see that happening. That's an interesting interpretation. I think there are, some people have mentioned, make sure you're watching the aspect ratios and make sure you're watching the colors at play, because Agnes's magic has appeared as purple, and as Monica is bursting through the barrier to get into Westview, there is bits of red and purple. So it was almost like that, perhaps. Nick, you're calling that right, that there are other elements at play on Wanda and not just hers. So that'd be interesting to see if that turned out to be accurate. But
and that was the other thing, was the broadcast has stopped, and I almost wonder if the broadcast was Wanda's call for help, secretly, subconsciously, while all of this was happening to begin with. Like Hayward asked,
broadcast has stopped, what are we watching?
Exactly. Like, what is the point now?
And so that's one of the things. I did like the twist, and I did like this episode as a whole, but I still think they haven't proven the high conceptness of it yet. And even the Agatha reveal, like it makes no sense for her to sometimes be herself with Vision and then pretend to not be herself for Vision to throw him off for an audience that's not what. Like like it crumbles
Save
around
it.
what they're trying to do.
Save it. We're getting to it. I promise.
Yeah.
Because yes, 100%. Like, and just Willie, to touch on not the Agnes piece, but like, who is then Vision? Like, who are the to camera breaking the fourth walls? Are they to us? Because previously they were to the viewer, like someone like Darcy was watching the broadcast, and possibly to us. But now it's different because the broadcast has stopped, and
But did they?
yeah, they say that the broadcast has stopped.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm just thinking too, like in Wanda's mind, right? Because at the end of this entire episode,
Yeah.
the purple energy goes to her eyes, and like I'm wondering if she's just thinking that she's in a show, like, and I think you're right, Nick. I think there's kind of this duality of like she thinks she's in a show, but also she's trying to rein in the control of her reality and like what is her reality. So I think she still imagines the broadcast is still going.
Yeah, I think the who they're talking to is for Wanda's benefit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Because she clearly didn't see.
She knew it the whole time. She knew what was happening the whole time. We saw that back in episode 3 when she get out and then puts it back on for Vision. Like this is her grieving.
Yeah, and I do think I think we've seen a lot of subtleties in her performance where a lot of the times she seems like she's playing Wanda on a TV show. So I do think, I do think there are a lot of aspects of that going on. And yeah, I was with Brian initially, where I thought that everything kind of falling apart around her was kind of sloppy because she should have been able to explain it. But Nick, now that you've kind of gone through, like it's her breaking through of the construct, like I think that makes it a lot cleaner what they're doing. Yeah.
Could be. All right, next up, Hayward's was tracking Vision. We find out why, something called Project Cataract, which was to start Vision. So a couple of things there. Cataract, obviously, part of the eye, something that applies directly to Vision, but also each episode of WandaVision. Each episode of WandaVision has ended with a cut into Vision's eye. Like that's where the credits start, is they zoom in on Vision's eye, each episode. Another thing is when I believe in Age of Ultron, Kyle, clean this up for me if you just watched it. I believe when Vision cuts Ultron out of the web, they say, he goes into his eye, and then we see him burn out. So the theory here, Nick, you mentioned this earlier, the theory here is that perhaps Ultron is in play still to some extent. I don't think that's going to be the case. I would much rather have that than I think what we're going to get. But interesting. I didn't love it because, again, I think it's muddying the waters, and I think this is going to be a typical. They're asking a lot of questions that they want us to follow and chase our tails on for virtually no reward, and it's going to be a throwaway line at some point, like Project Cataract was a reason to start the sentient weapon because we need Vision. He's the most powerful event, like some bullshit. So whatever. All right. What do we think about the commercial, the Nexus commercial?
I mean, it's the next stage of grief. I think it was actually really well done, and I think because it's depression, so like that is the subsequent stage of grief that Wanda's in. I liked it.
Is there a theory that all of the commercials are the stages of grief?
There is. I haven't been able to align them.
Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet, but
so the bargaining would be the yogurt one because that's the deal with the devil, anyways. Interesting.
I've heard that they align with the Infinity Stones, like you guys were saying.
The Infinity Stones ones works.
I haven't. Can you carry me through? Because I've heard like major points in her life, like Stark was the bomb that killed her parents and leveled their building.
The Stark one was a toaster, and it has a yellow light, which is the Mind Stone because of the yellow light of the Mind Stone is yellow, and also in the comics, Vision is always kind of like derogatorily called a toaster.
Okay.
So that's time. Your soul is your deal with the devil because you had to the kid kind of looks like Red Skull at the end. That one's a bit of a stretch, but if you make a deal with the devil for soul, that's your soul stone. And also the stone cutter, the fact that he is there and can never obtain the stone, whatever, it's the Red Skull thing. Okay. This one is reality because they specifically call out reality in it, and it's red. The time stone is the Hydra watch because it's literally time. The space stone was the Hydra soak because it was literally a blue cube that says it can take you places. That's 5. The only thing I think we haven't seen is Power Stone.
Which with Agnes's purple magic, maybe that comes into play next episode.
Exactly. That's the only one that I don't think has tracked, but I think that the other 5 align fairly neatly. I mean, certainly there are some like the one is literally just the Tesseract. Like it's just a blue box and it's like Hydra soak and it'll take
that's the Lagos one, right?
Oh yeah, the Lagos paper towel
Lagos was where
could be a Power Stone also.
Killed those people, right?
Yes,
so Lagos was where she killed people with her power. There was Strucker who gave her power, Stark who killed her parents. So like maybe they're doing more than one thing. Maybe
they could be. They could be,
and that would be giving the writers
one thing, and we're all wrong.
Yeah, again, right, exactly.
We might never get an explanation.
All right. Next up, the aerospace engineer is Major Goodner, who has 0 comic book backstory, is just a character made up for the show from anything that anybody can tell.
I don't think she's the engineer.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Where I think that was less of like a reveal and more just like, oh yeah, here's the people that I called in for help. I'm hopeful, but
this goes into my thing again. I'm going to save it. Okay, next up, this is the one out of the 12 that I'm actually really in on. I liked how it was done. It's Monica's trip through the field and then her subsequent power up. Now, I do want to know, though, that this scene is literally just the scene from the end of 2001 where she's seeing like all of the moments of her life. And Marvel must love that scene, specifically in 2001, because this is the 3rd time they've done it. They did it in Avengers when you see Iron Man's pupil as he's bringing the nuke up into the wormhole. They do literally that shot from 2001, and then they do it in Endgame on Captain America's face as he goes into like hyperspace for the first time as Rocket's flying the ship to Thanos. And then here we have like the full sequence. But I did really love the power-up scene of Monica getting her powers as she goes through the field the 3rd time. So I was in on that. You get a Brie Larson voiceover cameo, which was nice. And I've been in on Monica this whole time. She's a cool character. I think she's played really well. And
so I will say, in rewatching some of the movies too, and especially because of that scene in this episode, it's a shot in the dark, and I don't think it's true, but it gave me like a 2% chance that maybe this big cameo is Captain Marvel, because it seems like they're trying to kind of chip away at that a little bit.
Yeah.
They haven't had as much history with Monica and kind of that whole thing, but I think bringing in the voiceover for that, like that kind of did nod to that a little bit, and maybe there's some other connection. Probably not. It's probably still going to be somebody that we don't expect, or hopefully that we expect, but
I don't think it's going to be her. I think that they are setting up a relationship between Monica and Carol for like Captain Marvel 2 at some point, or maybe another property in between there for them to interact, because she has been decidedly like, don't want to talk about it, very cold. I saw a theory that Carol gave her mother the cancer that killed her just by being an infinity powered being, and that's sort of like some of the resentment. I was like, that's fucking dark. But
yeah, interesting.
I did like this scene as well, though.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was a cool power-up scene because we don't typically get it. We haven't gotten a lot of those since, phase 1 of the MCU, because a lot of the characters kind of show up fully formed. I mean, Captain Marvel, I guess we got her scene of the exploding engine.
Black Panther too.
Yeah, but he kind of get Killmonger gets his power up, and we kind of see how that plays out. Yeah, you're right.
I do have a question though. How did the armadillo thing not make it through? I'm calling it the armadillo like it's from Armageddon or something, but how did that not make it through? But like she just pushed through on her feet.
Yeah, I had that down on my list too.
Because
Yeah.
she had the power all along.
No.
And it was friendship. Friendship was inside. And
Yeah, it was the friends you made along the way. It was the real WandaVision.
no.
Or maybe Wanda wanted her in and Agnes didn't. And
The only thing I can think of is that because she had been through twice, her cells were already like kind of pre-programmed, like a little part of like there
Like
was some of
vision
it
phasing
imprinted into her, that she was like, it's kind of like the throwaway line in Endgame, which I hate, where the Hulk is like, most of the radiation of the Infinity Stones is gamma. It was like I was made for this. Like, doesn't make any goddamn sense. Anyways, next up, Monica versus Wanda.
Yeah. All
This
day.
was,
All day long.
I like this, but it was too short.
Yeah.
It was like seconds.
Fair. That's
I
fair.
think it's playing to something bigger.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I do want to make sure to mention. So one thing we talked about last week was, you know, what was really underpinning all of this, and I think we mentioned that someone kept tweeting that like maybe there isn't necessarily a bigger thing going on. Maybe it's just like maybe Wanda's grief is enough. And I think if you look at this scene between them two, I could almost buy, like, if they were just gonna pin this on Wanda going through grief, this scene made me believe that could work, is what the whole season's about.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was incredibly short. But I hope it's teeing up more in terms of like, yeah, grief fucking sucks. But you can't just build a TV show around it and and live like that.
Play house with your husband's robot corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, as in the comics, make your own robot family to deal with your own grief. Okay, next up, here we are. We're not here at it completely, but I just want to talk about the musical montage, the Agatha All Along, Aping in the Monsters. It was actually written by Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who did the music for Frozen, which I thought was really interesting. So that's why it's catchy and people like it. But what did we think of Agatha All Along? Because aside from it being stuck in my head, I hated this so much.
I mean, I think the standout for me, I mean, you can love it or hate the music itself, but like,
yeah,
if Catherine Hahn doesn't get some kind of award for her entire performance, I mean, just in the series anyway, she's been one of the shining stars in this whole thing. And I think, for me at least, like, it was a little cheesy, and I think it sort of did play into this like kind of cutesy TV trope, but yeah, I was hoping for something a bit more sinister, honestly.
You know, she killed the dog.
Yes, she did. Finally, we did have a resolution to the dog thing. So I kind of got like 75% of that reference. Although if the dog does come back, then maybe I'll be back in on that a little bit. But because I've been tracking that damn dog in the flowers this whole season, and I hate myself for doing it. But here we are. Okay, last up, the Pietro post credits. Snooper's gonna snoop.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I liked it. I like that it's setting up that maybe he's free
still
of whatever.
around?
Maybe he's free of what Agatha did to him. Like,
I
maybe
wasn't
he's an ally now.
Yeah, maybe he is. I wasn't really sure what to think of that. It seemed menacing a little bit, like almost like he was still being controlled, but perhaps not. Okay. Let's do this first. Let's start with, in the context of the show as a whole, without our comic knowledge or other understanding. So, the context of this as a show as a whole, and perhaps if you have some MCU background. So, if you've watched Wanda and Vision's story, so if you've seen Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, and then this, does the Agatha twist work? I'm going to start off and I'm going to say the answer is in this show is if I was just watching the show and I just had the knowledge of this, I think it does actually work for the show. Willie, what did you think about the twist specifically as it relates to this show as a TV show?
Yeah, I think it works. I mean, I think that, the only reason I knew about it was because we had talked about it. So, I was kind of expecting it. But I think even, one of my friends who had no MCU knowledge or whatever, like he kind of thought, like, had been expecting it for a few episodes too. So I don't know if it was really that much of a surprise at this point. But I think it worked. It proved to me that the show's doing more than nothing, and that was important for this episode.
Nick, what do you think?
It's I think it's hard to imagine something this far along in the MCU standing on its own. I feel like Infinity War is insanely guilty of kind of depending on your knowledge going in. You're not, no one's going to be that guy who just watched all the trailers for the first 7 Harry Potter movies and then went and saw Deathly Hallows Part 2 with no other context of the movie. Like, I so in one regard, I feel like this is definitely made for people who have been following along. But I agree. I think it does work. I think the name drop is unnecessary. Like, she introduces herself as Agatha Harkness, and that is going to confuse the bejesus out of people who have no idea who that is or why that's significant. But they're going to be like, there was something wrong with her. And then, I mean, Agatha all along spoon feeds that to you in a very playful way. And to Kyle's point, Catherine Hahn is delightful during it, and she's still playing Agnes while she's revealing her Agatha self. Like, she doesn't change. Like, she's just as her as she was the whole time. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because it's hard to remove myself from all of that context, but I think that it pays off certainly as a show that there was something off about this character. And I mean, they didn't Scooby-Doo us. I mean, I guess they did Scooby-Doo us. They they kind of set it up as sort of like everyone saying this is weird. So
Kyle, what do you think?
I think I kind of agree with Nick, where like people who don't know, who are removed from the comics, don't know Agnes, or who don't know who Agatha is, like they're like, oh, that makes sense because they've been kind of hinting towards her being weird and nosy and all of these different things. Like, as a show, as a separate entity itself, like there are things that lead you to that point. I think as a fan, I'm really hopeful, but I think I want them to have the next 2 episodes be a lot more sinister and a lot more like spooky, scary, like actually intense, because now this big reveal is kind of just wiped the dust off of our eyes and went, oh shit, like we actually have to think about this, and some people don't know what Agatha can do, and I think I want to see what she could do.
Yeah, I think all of that's fair. Again, I'm cool with it in the universe of the show. If I don't have the foresight to have any 616 info or any of that stuff, I think in the context of the show, she's a weird character. They've played with it before. She's broken. Like, there's that one episode where she asks Wanda if she wants to take the scene again, so she knows what's going on. I'm going to jump into the other thing, and here's where it falls apart for me, is that there's no narrative thread to drive this forward. The biggest thing that really bothered me is, again, in the Agatha All Along sequence, they show that she was controlling Evan Peters. She whammies Wanda. She was messing with Vision in the car, which we called that out last week in the Halloween episode. And I said at the time, okay, there's the potential that she's messing with him, but to what end? Because in a previous episode, she was trying to tip him off that something was wrong. And then they show her whammying the neighbor as well from that scene. So I don't understand what the narrative thread is. All right, go ahead.
She was not trying to tip Vision off. She was trying to get him suspicious enough to drive a wedge between him and Wanda, because Wanda behaves herself when Vision is around.
So,
Wait, what?
and yeah, unpack that, break that down for me. I guess.
So I don't think so. You said that there in previous episodes she's trying to tip Vision off, like in with Herb and the neighbor and all of that stuff. Like she's
right.
I think she was toying with him. I think she was toying with him in the car. I think she's feeding his suspicions because he has no memory of anything prior to Westview.
Correct.
It was like he got C-3PO hard wiped, rebooted, has no context for that. He's still a supercomputer and he can still put clues together. But if he is suspicious of Wanda, that sends Wanda further down the spiral. And I think that's what Agatha wants. So I don't think
not only that, but in that same scene, she was starting to be like, well, that what was her Geraldine, she's a weirdo. Watch out for her. And again, I would think your point. I think it was less for her and more for just like Vision. You gotta watch out. I don't know.
I think that works in the context of the car scene to throw Vision off the scent to keep going to break through the barrier so that Wanda eventually has to expand it. I just don't think it's very tight. I don't think that, like, I think your point is valid and I could see that case being made. But here's my thing, and I think Marvel is doing this on purpose, because anybody that, like, I mean, I've been on this train since Jump Street, and this isn't to point out like, of course I knew the twist before, because it wasn't a twist. It wasn't hidden well. Her name was Agnes. There's a show about Wanda, and it was Catherine Hahn. So they got an actor to play a character named Agnes in the Wanda show, and you just merge the two names, Agatha and Harkness, together, and you get Agnes. So we know this was going to happen. So anybody that has like some kind of knowledge of that knows that's going in. And for 7 episodes, I've been waiting there like, okay, what are the stakes of this show right now? Like, what is at play? Is it just Wanda's mental state? Like, I guess it's the people in the town that we don't really know or care about. And now we're 7 episodes in. It was all hanging on a reveal that, again, if you knew anything about comics that you saw coming, or even, I guess, if you didn't, you could have seen coming by the way it was played. And then you're given a montage that was showing all these moments that was basically like, we fooled you on purpose, but not in a way that's smart, in a way that is completely misleading, because you didn't get it wrong. You saw what you saw, but like you actually didn't. So it's not like, right, exactly. Like there's like the shot of like, we were on Agnes in the car with Vision. There wasn't a cutaway. So in Agatha all along, she cuts away and she looks at the camera and like rolls her eyes like she's fucking with him. Like that wasn't in the scene. So that's not information that we could have had. And not only that, but then we also have Evan Peters, who they know the fans know is the Fox Quicksilver. That's on purpose. So whether that is purposely in this show to merge the universe is what we all thought. And I think Marvel was playing at that. And I also think having the Office intro in this, knowing and name dropping an aerospace engineer over and over and over again, knowing that the fans would immediately jump to the character Reed Richards and John Krasinski for the Office, and to have an Office intro, I think this is very manipulative. I think for the first time, Marvel is trading in on the fact that the fans are following these Easter eggs. And I think that they are trolling us for the sake of a story that, when it's all said and done, is not going to be as interesting as the mystery they are trying to get us to solve, which isn't there in the first place. Willie, what do you think about that? Because I know you and I have come into grips with this a couple of times, and we've kind of waffled back and forth on being in and out on this. So what's your reaction to that?
I mean, I think that's very much where I was last week. I think you and me have kind of switched places a bit. I think that's exactly where I was last week, where I was convinced they were just they were playing cat and mouse for funsies. But I don't know. This reveal worked for me. I mean, I agree with a lot of you said. Like, it was with information we didn't have, and I still don't think it explains why she did certain things. But just having Wanda in this deep satanic pit with another evil witch, like, this is what I want the show to be. And I feel like it's heading somewhere good. And I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm probably right on your boat, Brian. But this episode, put my fears to rest for a week. Where I think it's going someplace cool. I think how you're feeling is how they kind of want comic fans to feel after this episode. I think they want them to feel like they were manipulated for no reason, and then they're going to do something really cool. That's my hope.
So you think I'm being inceptioned? You think that I'm like 3 layers deep
I 100%
into a manipulation?
Brian, I gotta kick you in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I think you're being incepted. I think that's what they're trying to. It's very similar. It's similar in a way. So Walking Dead did this to nowhere near a successful, way, but they did try to do it where they would take things that comic book fans knew that were coming and they'd change them or do them differently or do them later. Just so, like, because there are these huge moments in the comics that are shocking, but if you just do them exactly the same way in the TV show, they're not shocking anymore because people have seen them coming. That's kind of what I think they're doing here. I think they know that people are following along. They know that people are expecting something big. And I mean, like you mentioned, like, she's even Agatha's toying with this whole reveal. Like, I don't think she's the only thing going on here. I think this is the fake out punch before, like, the shoe really drops. I hope. I really hope.
I want to follow up on that, but I want to give Nick a chance because I know you have.
I'm like peeing myself
You're
over here.
chomping at the bit.
I didn't want to interrupt if Kyle had something to throw in, but just I guess I was gonna say, you say that for the first time they're exploiting our goodwill, but I sort of feel like this is maybe their only chance to experiment with our expectations like this, because it's an entire show about a manufactured reality that they're purposely framing as a sitcom, going crazy with magic in this long form to tell a story that they've not had an opportunity to do after acquiring all of their characters from this giant merger. Like, here's the thing, to use a poker analogy that I know you'll appreciate, their hand looks pretty shitty right now, but I feel like they have a couple of outs, and if they catch them on the river, it will be a huge payoff. Like, that'll be the jackpot. If like we're looking at what it is, but I think if we look at the places that they can take it, we're either not seeing it because it's such a slim possibility, or one of these, like, incredible outcomes is there. I've seen, I don't know, I've seen some theories that I think really get it on the head, and I think Willie was just saying, like, Agatha toyed with the reveal, like and you, Brian, you were saying that there was that cutaway where she was, like, rolling her eyes, and there was the camera pulling back to reveal Agatha being the one to interview Wanda. That, sure, we saw those scenes, like, that wasn't Agatha's voice.
It was not.
I saw someone on Reddit saying if you remodulate it was just Catherine Hahn, like, slowed down or, like, voice changed or whatever. So, I mean, the show telegraphed its villain Scooby-Doo style the whole time, but they're also telegraphing that we can't trust what we're seeing. And I mean, you had Agatha in that weird ass basement with that weird ass book that I appreciate your TikTok. And I assume you're going to talk about the book, so I won't get there right now. But I think this is just a top layer. Like, I think there are outs. Like, why can't Wanda control the kids? What is Agatha's interest in the kids? Where did they come from? I think Marvel emphasizes regular people mattering, and the fact that Sword is looking at all of these people stuck in Wanda's hex as real people that matter, with the exception of Agnes and now the two kids. Whatever they wanted with Vision's power and body against his living will that he had as a synthezoid. Um, I think all of this has the opportunity to coalesce, and I think they have a lot of places they can go. And I think that for the first time they have so many avenues to deliver that content. Like, I think it's bigger than just this show. And I think it's one of those things that's going to I'm trying to think of when they really first started doing it in the MCU. Like Iron Man had like I Am Iron Man and Nick Fury, and like there were like breadcrumbs, and then it sort of like expanded out. And now it's I mean now it's fractals on fractals with what they can do. Like, because Kevin Feige is like 100% embracing these Disney Plus shows as part of the MCU, which he hasn't done with Agents of Shield or Netflix Defenders and anything like that. So like we have so many opportunities to scatter and to have that aerospace engineer payoff, to have Agatha's dark magic payoff, to have like whatever's going on with Sword and Jimmy Woo, to have the relationship with Carol. Like, I don't know. I'm all in. to bring it back to my poker reference. I think they only have a few good outs, but if they stick the landing, I'll be blown away.
And I think that, to me, honestly, to expand on the poker analogy, because I think that's right. I think that's my issue, is that you're hoping it catches the river. Because let's plot that TV is different from movies. And Willie, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do this to you again. If we plot this on a story structure beat sheet, we are currently I would put this we're at the all is lost moment, is episode 7. Wanda doesn't have her kids. Vision doesn't know what's going on. Monica temporarily defeated. Wanda's in the belly of the beast. So we're there, which on a story structure, we're about to break into Act 3, which means we have, and again, we know we only have 2 more episodes, regardless of how long time we have. We only have 2 more episodes to wrap up this whole thing, and we just now know that there is an opposing force. And I think for Marvel's sake, to have all those threads, to try to bring things up, I don't think they're going to be able to pull it together in a way that is satisfying. I think there are going to be too many things left on the table for us to be like, well, that didn't end up mattering at all, or that was a total red herring, or this is that. Willie, honestly, I would be absolutely shocked if there was more than Agatha. That if honestly, if Mephisto, if Nightmare, if any of those villains, if we got a Kang reference, I mean, I would be shocked if I got any of that other than a name drop. To me, this seems like a sweetheart, you like a Chinatown. She's like, Wanda, you have no idea what world you're playing in, and it's going to wrap up in 2 episodes, and the book will be relevant because perhaps that was the missing book in the Doctor Strange library. And perhaps Doctor Strange shows up, perhaps he doesn't, but this is just going to lead right into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I would be absolutely shocked if there was a bigger opposing force running Agatha, because I think this is the card Marvel had to play, and they are trying to make it seem cooler than what it is, because they knew that we were all going to guess it. So they are trying to embed.
Counterpoint.
Yeah.
Who's Ralph? I get the references her husband, Ralph, several times.
Yeah.
Is that another red herring, or could that be in reference to something? Could that be like the bigger threat? the underlying thing. I don't know. I just feel like
here's the thing. It could be, but is it worth it? Like, is it going to be like, okay, secretly you're 7 episodes in. Now you'd be 8 episodes in, and you'd have to do another reveal and basically be like, we built up all to this to Agatha all along. We told you that's what it was.
next episode is Agatha all along.
Is that what it's called?
I don't know, but what if it is? And then the final episode is a 2-hour Scarlet Witch movie.
I mean, okay, but like, is that
you hate that
good? Well, I don't know, because again, I have a problem with mysteries hiding information that you can't. I have a problem with mysteries that you actually can't solve. The viewer could not solve. Like, we had our own interpretations. We could bring our own biases into this based on comics, but this show, if you just watch these 7 episodes, you would not, other than a few moments of weirdness, be able to put that together. And especially if there is another reveal, I don't think it's satisfying. I don't think it's satisfying for comic fans. I don't think it's satisfying for people that just watch the show. I think they have written themselves into a corner because they knew everyone would, because they didn't want to just do. See, here's the annoying thing. And again, I'm going to harp on this movie until the day I die. The reason Star Trek Into Darkness sucks is because they tried to bury the Khan reveal, even though we all knew it. And then you get in the middle of Act 2, you get, oh, I'm actually Khan, and now I'm the bad guy, but I'm actually not the bad guy, and then it's this other person. And you're trying to complicate the point because you're trying to be smarter than your audience who knows what you're talking about. So
that's J.J. Abrams, though.
Yeah, but that's J.J. Abrams, but it's also a puzzle bot. Yeah, but he is him and Lindelof, who wrote that movie, also wrote Lost. And that is the puzzle box format, which is the problem with something like WandaVision and something like Westworld, is that if you have threads and mysteries that the viewer cannot actually solve, then you have written yourself into a corner in which there is no way the ending could be satisfying because you didn't give there enough. Like, if we just figured it out, like if there was like 20 different clues as to the devil is around, which we've pointed out a few, like references, there's not clues, then I'd say, like, okay.
What if Hayward and Agnes are in cahoots?
Then to me, again, I would say if there is another reveal, I don't think they did enough with Hayward, because there was a heel turn in one episode, and we called that out, Willie. I remember saying, like, okay, he just suddenly became bad. Like, right. He was on Monica's side, and then he suddenly was like, you guys didn't know what it was like during the 5-year blip. And now I want Vision. And why do I want Vision? Is it because, like, Hydra is in my name? Is it because I'm Ultron? Is it because I'm Nightmare? Is it because I'm a Fist? Like, and that's the thing, is, like, the show is going to have to, in the next episode, the show is going to have to explain who Agatha Harkness is. To some degree. They're going to have to reckon with that, because they can't pull a Pietro again. They can't just gloss over it again.
Well, they could.
They could. They could. That is a fair point.
It seems like, and I don't blame you for feeling this way. Because of all of the things, because I know, and I mentioned this last week, where this feeling that you have is kind of like how people felt when Game of Thrones ended, right? So you had this big moment at the end of whatever season 7, 6, 7, where you had this moment where they broke the wall. They broke the wall in the north, and they're coming down. And so we just got to that point in WandaVision where, like, okay, like, we know some big conflict is going to happen. Something's going to happen. But you're right, it is a little late, but also we didn't realize at the time that it was going to be bad afterwards. And the only reason why I'm still hanging in there and hopeful is because of Kevin. That's probably the only reason why I'm hopeful that these last episodes will have some kind of satisfying payoff, and maybe it won't complete every single thread or every single dangling carrot, which obviously would be disappointing. But I think he's pretty much the only reason why I think they can have something big without it being kind of out of the blue or for no reason, or like, it just seems like everything that's pretty much been hinted at and done has been for a reason.
I also think of How I Met Your Mother.
Another terrible ending.
Right. Well, when you talk about taking so long to get to the
Right.
thing and then making your explanation. Now, the difference is that this has the multiverse of madness to follow it up. This has the connections to Captain Marvel 2, like whether or not, here's the thing. Marvel might not have been intending that aerospace engineer to be anything, and then they see all the fan theories online, like Reed Richards, like, oh, you want John Krasinski and Emily Blunt to be, like, we could draft up this deal. He auditioned to be Captain America. Let's just make him Reed Richards. Fuck it all. Like,
And but see, I think it's on. Go ahead, Willie.
I was just gonna say I do think, and I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but I do think that we are in the era of, like you said, Nick, nothing in the MCU stands on its own, and we might not get all the answers for everything we're looking for within WandaVision. I do think that WandaVision has to be enjoyable and successful and has to have payoff of its own. Otherwise, it's a failure. But I don't necessarily think that they're going to give us everything we want to know like within this movie or within this series.
And I don't think that's good. I truly don't think that's effective. I don't think that's effective storytelling. It's maybe Marvel's way of storytelling because we didn't always get the answers. But I think that the infinity threads that we were following were inconsequential to the plots of the movies they were in. Whereas I think WandaVision, a lot of this is actually going to be impactful to the show, and we're not going to get the Willie, I think you're right. I think we're not going to get the answers to all these questions in this show, and we're going to have to like go back to watch a 9-episode show. And I think, and here's my thing to jump on another movie that I really don't like that a lot of people love, and I'm totally going to get shit for this, but The Usual Suspects is a movie I truly hate. And I'm going to use a quote that I texted Willie and that from that movie. And it's that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist, which I think is what this show is trying to do. Not just literally in the sense of the devil Mephisto, but like in the sense that they are trying to be smarter. They are trying to hide something in plain sight. Usual Suspects is a movie that plays with audience perception. And again, you can't figure out the twist until you see it. Whereas something like Chris Nolan's The Prestige tells you in the first act that you have to watch closely, and you can figure out the twist in that movie just by watching the movie because all of the clues are there if you are paying attention. So the issue I have with that is you're introducing threads, you're playing on your fans' goodwill that have put in all this time, that have put in all this effort, that are coming with this knowledge. These are the people that sat in the theater at the end of Avengers and were like, oh my God, that was Thanos. And everyone else was like, who? And we had to explain it to them for an hour and a half. Like, these are the people that you are now fucking with that goodwill. And I'm telling you right now, these are the people that you're going to really piss off by doing that, by playing that game. I think perhaps, I don't remember who said it, but this might be their only chance to try that. And I don't think that they're going to land the ship. I think that they've, again, ridden themselves into a corner. They're trying to convince everyone that they're not seeing the whole picture and that we're going to obfuscate, and it's going to be this, completely circuitous plan and whatever it is. And I think when it all wraps up, even if it's a 2-hour Scarlet Witch versus Agatha, Scarlet Witch and Vision movie, and it's cool and it's fun, I don't think the journey is going to have been worth it after this episode. Depending on this reveal, 7 episodes in, with seemingly no other answers forthcoming, and just literally to tie her to every other question we had, I think they botched this, honestly.
I think for MCU continuity, I think it does hinder on the last 2 episodes. I think you're right. I think they could just totally botch the fact that this lives in that if they don't do it well. But I like to think of it from a couple of different perspectives. Where business perspective, one of the biggest wins ever. I mean, and that's considering all things Marvel and Disney already.
Yeah.
But as a I mean, I hate to be that guy, but like as an art form, this was successful, right? Because story wise, you can make an argument either way, but just the fact that they were able to draw upon these different decades of TV, and some were successful and some were okay, but the fact that they were able to do that and so much lead up into that was excitement for just some kind of weird shit that they can watch for a little bit that also just happens to be Wanda and Vision, right? It was like there was excitement for that, and especially for a time right now, that was actually inviting. And granted, again, the story might not be exactly how we want and how it fits in the MCU, but I think overall, I'm not upset about it unless they like say it's a dream. Then I'll be pissed.
I wouldn't count that out.
Oh,
Truly.
come on.
Truly, I wouldn't.
I can't.
If it's a dream, I'm 100% where you are, Brian. Like, and that's what I was, that's what I was beginning to get to. At the beginning of the episode, where Wanda's like, "What do you mean you want answers? We're not going to give you answers." And I'm like, "Oh no, you better give me some fucking answers." Like, but I don't know. And so my thing with this episode, is even if, I don't know, Brian, if you're looking at it in too big picture or not, but like, even, I've harped on the show from the beginning that a lot of the things that it's been doing fall apart if you think about them too much. And I still think that's true. But like, is it a mess? Yes. It's still fun. I'm still enjoying it. And there's like the Agatha reveal still brought me, like, I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a witch and we're gonna have witch fights. Like, I'm in. Now, if they totally screw me over with that, I'm not gonna be happy. And I think I said this last week. If it ends with Wanda and Vision fighting, and then they hug at the end and wave at the camera and say, "That's all, folks," like it's just not gonna work. But
that would be trash.
But I just don't think that's what they're doing. And if it is what they're doing, then fuck, Brian, you were right. But I hope that's not what they're doing.
If it's a dream, you're recording this, I will never watch the MCU again. I will opt out of every future thing they do if this turns out to be straight up she's just like asleep in the sword facility where she botched breaking Vision out and everyone's just in the Matrix or some shit. Like, no.
Controlled by Ultron.
Okay, if they're controlled by Ultron, that's different.
Even then,
cool. I'm telling you right now, I sent this. I might have sent it to you, Kyle, also, or Nick. Maybe I sent it to you. There is a Twilight Zone episode that has had multiple references, which ends up with it being a dream. So I wouldn't count it out yet. I'm just saying. I don't think so. I'm saying it would be
but don't put it in the universe.
Incredible troll.
What if it's not Wanda's dream? What if it's Mephisto's dream, and that leads to him going to find Wanda in the actual MCU?
What if this isn't the MCU? What if this is a branch reality?
There is precedent for that now that the Nexus has been introduced and that Pietro's there, is that we are separate, is that the Hex itself is part, like, in the Nexus and is not actually in the 2800 MCU universe, but that's neither here nor there.
Other thoughts I had was, you talk about mysteries that you're able to solve, and all I can think of are Agatha Christie novels.
Sure.
You can't solve those. You know how she has a little thing. No, you can't. The judge was like, "Oh, I faked my death, and like I went around and killed people with the bear," and it was like, the fuck could anybody figure that out? Like, fuck off. That's not possible.
Yeah, I would say that I put up a couple Agatha Christie's on you. Like, we could talk about those, because
I'm only thinking of the one. I'm only thinking of was it 10 Little Indians, or what do they call it?
And then there were none.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the non-racist name they gave it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there were none. Like there's like the note from the judge that they find all the, like, come on, who's calling that? Where is that? Maybe my 9th grade mind missed it or something, because I haven't read it since, because I was so freaking pissed at it.
Yeah, I actually do think there are enough clues, and then there were none. But that's like, I get your point, is that there are mysteries that you can't solve.
They're still satisfying after they're explained, because you're like, oh,
right.
Well, Yeah, I think that's what you're getting at, Brian, is you can go back and look at them and you're like, oh, I should have caught that. If I can see how it makes sense. It's not like, oh, it's not a book being like, oh, if you went on the internet and Googled this answer, but because that's kind of what the show does when it shows the Agatha things that we didn't see. And so, and I get that, but I just don't. Like I said, I think Agatha is a false flag. I don't think the show's all hinges on Agatha. I think the show wants us to think that right now. Like, I think the show's playing with that idea of, oh, it was all Agatha, and it's going to have bigger ramifications. If literally she's the big bad and nothing else happens, that's going to be incredibly disappointing.
Right. I mean, there are a couple other moments too. Like why is the one kid who reads minds is saying, it's noisy around Wanda, but it's quiet around Agatha. Like, again, I don't know what that means, but I feel like that's part of the payoff that we're not thinking about the right way yet. Like, I don't know why she's a void right now. And there was another thought that I had, and it's gone from my brain forever.
Well, here's the thing. If she's not the big bad and there's another reveal, again, they're going to have to do a lot of work very quickly to make that make sense and be okay. I think I would have been okay if, again, the Halloween episode was a huge miss for me. I really think they botched that one. I think that should have been a lot better for a lot of reasons. And I didn't like the car scene with Agatha because she was dressed as a witch and we didn't know the reveal yet. And I'm like, okay, this is your moment to do it. And Vision frees her and she doesn't do anything. I think this could have been saved is if in the Halloween episode we see her drive away and then we cut back to her in the car and she just like puts a little smirk on. Let the viewer know like, oh shit, what was that? And then the rest of the episode can play out and then you can have your Agatha all along and you're like, okay, I'm there. But to bury it so far, and these will be my closing thoughts, then I'll go around the horn for all the other closing thoughts. I am, again, Willie, I would be shocked if there's another villain reveal. I think this ends with Wanda and Vision versus Agatha. Perhaps there is some other like force like Hayward but I'm just saying I don't think it's going to be another big Marvel villain. I don't think it's the devil. I think, again, we could get a name drop. This could end with Wanda releasing Mephisto into the 2800 like he's trapped somewhere. We could get that, but I don't think there's going to be a fight with another force other than Agatha, because I think that I think this was their shot, and I think that they tried to do everything they could to throw us off the scent in 20 different ways, but this was their card to play, and I am not looking forward to the ending. But Nick, I'm going to throw to you first. What are your final thoughts on this episode, and what are your hopes for the last two?
I mean, trying not to play off of anything that you just said, final thoughts for this episode, I guess. Where are the kids? They are important. I think they're the linchpin of this. I don't know. I see a narrow window of opportunity for them to make right on this. I'm still sitting here curious if we're going to get commercials in the next two episodes that are going to somehow make everything make even more sense. There's just so much at play. There's so many moving parts. And I think I'm with Willie. They're having fun. I'm still having fun. I'm still interested to see what they do with it. And I kind of don't mind them playing with my brain. I think it's an interesting premise. I think it's the only chance that they're going to get to do something like this. We're not going to see this in Falcon Winter Soldier. We're not going to see this in Loki. I think it's a one and done. And I think that they've developed the character of Wanda, and to a lesser extent Vision, I guess, more than they had in the rest of the MCU. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that she's an interesting character that was just an accent and some cleavage in Age of Ultron. And And sorry, I saw a screen grab recently where I was like, Jesus, why was she dressed like this? Um,
Joss Whedon.
yeah,
That's why.
that's exactly
why.
what it was. That's 100% what it was, and I felt dirty, and we don't need to get into that, but I was just like, ugh, give me the Snyder cut of Age of Ultron. I don't know. I'm on board. I'm interested to see where they go. I'm curious, how that pays off. I mean, nobody mentioned, or maybe you guys have in previous episodes, that Fury was with the Skrulls and Sword, right? Like at the end
Yeah,
of Far
we're
From Home,
tracking it.
and the time difference, like why everyone else is unavailable to help Spider-Man during that. I don't know. I just think that there's a couple of outs that they have that if they thread that needle, it'll be super impressive. And again, it's one of those things that pays off in hindsight.
Sure.
Like once we have the full thing, that's cool. But if they had given it to us all at once, I don't think we would have that. I don't think that there would be this majesty to the show to let you over. It's like when I used to play Risk at lunch at work, and you can't finish a game of Risk during one lunch hour. So then everybody's like making deals and like double crossing each other and, forming alliances and breaking them like before the next game even begins. And I think, again, Kyle said he didn't want to be that guy, but I agree that like as an art form, they really kind of nailed it here. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about it if it didn't have all these possibilities. Yeah.
That's fair. Kyle?
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on a lot of it already, but I'm gonna say it again. If Catherine Hahn doesn't win anything out of this for any reason, or at least nominated, I'm gonna be pissed because she's great as it is, but this was really just a shining example of how her range, and what she can do with a fun script. So I think what's going to happen in the last two episodes will be fun, and I think they're going to rely on that. I don't think I agree with you, Brian, where there's not going to be another big reveal, but I think they're just going to have fun with what they can, and then kind of like what they did with other movies, that they're going to just have some fun, close this as best they can, and then drop a couple names and drop a couple different things that lead into whatever. I can almost see them get a phone call from an R. Richards, and it's like, all right, like there it is, at the end, of course, and then maybe the day after they reveal that I don't know, that there's the movie trailer is coming out soon. I don't, something like that where they know people are waiting for all of these things to happen, but I think they are just trying to make it enjoyable to to the best extent that they can, which so far pretty good.
All right, Willie, the last word is with you. We flopped on this. I was in on last week. You are out. Now we're here, and I think this probably might be where we're going to stay depending on the ending, but give me your final thoughts and your hopes for the last two.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've gotten a little bit of like I've said, I see a couple of different possibilities for the way the show is going to end that all work and are enjoyable. It's just a matter of how it does it, and I don't think like it's absolutely still on the table that the show doesn't work, that the mysteries it built weren't as interesting as they wanted them to be, and it all is going nowhere. I think that's still very much a possibility. I think this week proved to me that they are very aware of what they are doing, and they know, they know what they're trying to do. And so I'm still with them. I'm still on the train. I think it's going somewhere good. But like I said, if I really want Wanda to end up, to go dark, I want bad side Wanda. I think if they undo what they've done with her development this season, and it ends up that like Agatha's like, it's just, if it ends with just Agatha versus Wanda, that's incredibly boring and not interesting. And if they don't pull any of these other things they have that they've been hinting towards, I also think that's uninteresting. But I think this episode showed me that they know what they're doing. Hopefully, with an asterisk. So I may be right with you next week, Brian. But I think, yeah, I enjoyed this week. So
Go ahead, Nick.
I had such an annoying final thought that
Yeah.
maybe they're gonna make Wanda make the choice that I thought Stark was gonna have to make in Endgame. I thought watching Endgame for the first time that Tony was gonna have to choose between going back 5 years and rewinding everything and giving up his daughter and his family, or not doing it and figuring things out from there. Like, I thought he was going to have to make that choice, and he was going to ultimately, like, do, like, whatever, go back on that. And I was like, that is utterly heartbreaking. And then whatever, he sacrificed himself, and everybody who was brought into the world.
Spoilers. Whoa.
Sorry.
Ooh.
Brought into the world in the last 5 years got to stay. So, like, cool. But what if it doesn't end with Wanda versus Agatha? What if Wanda chooses to keep her kids? And I think that would kind of be weak because I don't really care about the kids yet, which is terrible because they're kids and whatever. But if
Are they though?
I think to her they are, and I think her making that choice to keep them no matter the cost could be the thing that brings her into villainry and makes it more interesting. Like for the kids, she does it to that end.
Children.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my thought. It was like, ooh, maybe this is like the platform for them to force someone to make a terrible choice.
So now, for sure, I don't think this is going to end well for Wanda by any stretch, or Vision, to be honest with you. But we'll see. I'm not hopeful, but you know what? We got 2 more episodes, depending on length. I was really in. The show had its hooks in me from Jump Street. I really defended it in the beginning. I believed in Feige. I somewhat still do because he gave us Endgame. But you know what? Like, the MCU is not a perfect product. There are tons of things in it that we can point to and say, like, hey, just didn't work out. Comics are not perfect. There are plenty of bad stories and mysteries that don't pay off, and this could just be one of those things. And I think perhaps with Marvel's first 4 into TV, that's where we are. But we will certainly see. Kyle, Nick, thank you for joining Willie and I tonight on our World Security Council. That's what it's called. Nailed it.
I knew you looked that up.
Yeah.
Did you look it up, or did you remember?
I didn't look it up, but I had just watched Winter Soldier, and I was like, the entire episode, I'm like, what the hell is it called? Anyways, we'll keep track of this, and perhaps we'll have another roundtable discussion once this is all said and done, and we'll check back in with everybody about how we feel about the ending. Guys, again, thank you for joining Willie and I. And Willie, we're going to end the same way we always do. Take what you can
and give nothing back.
All right. Thanks, everyone.